Okay, Reddit, I seriously need you to tell me if I'm the one who's lost her mind. Am I really the villain in this story? Because my fiance, 31 million, Nathaniel, just ended our 3-year relationship, packed his bags, and walked out of my 29F life forever. His reason, I had dinner with a male colleague. Fine, full disclosure, I know that's not the entire story. I might have omitted one tiny detail when I told him about it. After dinner, my colleague, Brent, and I walked to a bar down the street. It was cold out, and for maybe 10 seconds, he held my hand as we walked towards the bar. That's it. That was the great, unforgivable sin. A momentary, meaningless touch that I didn't mention. For that, he's treating me like I cheated, like I burned down everything we ever built. 3 years, our apartment, our future, all of it just incinerated. He didn't even yell, it was worse. It was just this quiet, disappointed finality. So please be honest with me. Does a 10-second handhold and a lie of omission really warrant the death penalty for a relationship? Am I the monster he seems to think I am, or is this the most insane, disproportionate reaction in the history of breakups? For 3 years, Nathaniel was my anchor. That sounds like a cliche, I know, but it's the only word that fits. I met him 6 months after my ex, a man I'd lived with for 4 years, confessed to having a secret credit card and a gambling addiction that had eaten through my entire savings. The betrayal wasn't just about the money, it was the sheer scale of the deception. He had built an entire false reality around me, and when it crumbled, so did I. I was a wreck, jumpy, suspicious, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop with everyone I met. Then came Nathaniel. He was solid, a civil engineer who thought in straight lines and logical progressions. His world was built on things you could measure and trust: blueprints, stress tolerances, the immutable laws of physics. He was calm, predictable, and honest to a fault. I remember once he found an extra $10 in his change from a coffee shop and walked 5 blocks back in the rain to return it. I thought it was sweet then. Endearing, even. He never lied, not about big things, not about small things. He called them integrity breaches, as if a little white lie about liking his mom's terrible casserole was the same as faking a building inspection report. He knew my history. He was patient with my trust issues, my occasional need for reassurance, my moments of irrational panic. He'd hold me and say, "With me, Celeste, what you see is what you get." Always, and for a long time, that was exactly what I needed. He was safe, he was my fortress. But lately, God, I feel guilty even thinking this, that safety had started to feel like a cage. His predictability, once a comfort, began to feel monotonous. His rigid principles felt less like integrity and more like inflexibility. Our weekends became a perfect, repeating loop. Farmer's market on Saturday morning, hike in the afternoon, dinner at the same Italian place, Netflix on Sunday. It was perfect. It was stable, and it was slowly, quietly suffocating me. I felt that old, familiar restlessness creeping in, that toxic whisper in my ear that I inherited from my past trauma. Is this real? If it's this calm, are you sure you're still desirable? Don't you need a little chaos just to feel alive? Nathaniel's love was a quiet, steady flame, and I, like a moth, was starting to look for a fire. Brent was a wildfire in the sterile, predictable landscape of my marketing department. He'd transferred from the Chicago office, bringing with him a tornado of loud jokes, sharp insights, and an easy confidence that made my world feel like it had been switched from black and white to color. He was everything Nathaniel wasn't. Spontaneous, a little bit reckless with his humor, and he had this way of looking at you when you spoke, a focused intensity that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. It started innocently: work lunches, brainstorming sessions that bled into after-work drinks with the team, but I noticed the little things. He'd remember a stupid story I told weeks ago and bring it up. He'd compliment my presentation, but then later in a text, he'd praise the specific way I'd phrased a difficult point. It was intoxicating. A tiny, traitorous voice in my head, the one I'd been trying to starve for months, whispered, "This is what you've been missing." So when he asked me to dinner, just the two of us, to celebrate landing the new client, I said yes. The logical part of my brain, the part that sounded a lot like Nathaniel, was screaming at me, "This is a bad idea. You have a fiancé. You are crossing a line you can't uncross." But the saboteur in me, the part that was terrified of being forgotten in a sea of comfortable stability, just smiled and texted him back, "I'd love that." The dinner was a blur of laughter and wine. We talked about everything and nothing: our horrible first jobs, our shared love for old horror movies, his recent, messy divorce. He made me feel clever and funny and beautiful. For a few hours, I wasn't just Nathaniel's stable, reliable fiancée, I was Celeste, a woman who could still command the attention of a room, or at least one very charming man. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was chasing a high, a validation hit that my safe, loving relationship no longer provided. I was being selfish and reckless, and a part of me hated myself for it, but the other part was ravenous. Then, as we stepped out of the warm restaurant and into the biting November air, it happened. The street was crowded with people, a river of bodies flowing past the doorway. Brent turned to me and said, "There's a great little cocktail place just down here, the Night Owl. We should have one for the road." Before I could answer, he reached out and took my hand, his fingers lacing through mine. "Come on, I'll steer." His hand was warm, and the contact sent a jolt up my arm that was equal parts panic and thrill. It wasn't a grab. It was a confident, easy gesture, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And in that moment, my brain split in two. One half was a blaring alarm, let go, this is it. This is the mistake, but the other half, the self-destructive half, was already rewriting the narrative. It's cold out, he's just being a gentleman, it's loud and crowded. This doesn't mean anything. I didn't pull away. For the 30-second walk to the bar, I let him hold my hand. I told myself it was nothing. A friendly, meaningless gesture against the cold. But I knew, even then, as the neon sign of the Night Owl grew closer, that it was the kind of nothing that could destroy everything. I walked into our apartment around 11, buzzing from the wine and the attention. The lie was already formed on my lips, smooth and practiced. Nathaniel was on the couch reading. He looked up and gave me that soft, trusting smile that now feels like a punch to the gut. "Hey, you're back. How was dinner with your work friends?" he asked. "It was good," I said, kicking off my shoes and deliberately making my tone casual. Brent, the new guy, was telling us all about the Chicago branch. Pretty boring stuff, honestly. I had reduced the vibrant, electric evening to a dull office anecdote. It was a lie of omission, a carefully curated version of the truth designed to preempt any questions, any of his principled concerns. It worked. He just nodded and went back to his book, completely unsuspecting. The ease with which I deceived him felt both like a relief and a small, sharp stab of self-loathing. The bomb didn't go off until Saturday. We were at a friend's housewarming party, a casual get-together with about 20 people. I was getting drinks when I saw our mutual friend, a guy named Owen, clap Nathaniel on the shoulder. I couldn't hear everything, but I saw Owen laughing, and then I heard the words that made the blood drain from my face. "Saw Celeste and some handsome dude holding hands walking into the Night Owl on Tuesday. You better watch out, man, she's got a secret admirer." Owen winked, completely oblivious. He thought he was making a harmless joke, but I saw the shift in Nathaniel's posture. It was almost imperceptible, but his smile tightened, became a brittle line. He didn't look at me. He just gave a weak laugh, mumbled something about Owen being drunk, and walked away. The air around us turned to ice. The car ride home was silent, not a comfortable silence, but a heavy, suffocating one. I was rehearsing my excuses, my justifications. He was just being friendly. It was crowded. "You're overreacting." When we got inside, he didn't raise his voice. He just put his keys on the counter with a quiet click and turned to face me. "Celeste, can we talk for a minute? Please sit down." I remained standing, my arms crossed defensively. "There's nothing to talk about. Owen was just being stupid." Nathaniel's eyes were filled with a profound, weary sadness that was 1,000 times worse than anger. "I'm not going to ask you about the hand-holding, Celeste. I'm not even going to ask you about the bar. I only have one question, and I need you to be honest with me for once. Why did you lie to me?" The directness of it disarmed me. All my prepared speeches, all my minimized truths evaporated. "I didn't lie," I insisted, my voice rising with panic. I didn't mention it because I knew you'd make a big deal out of it. I knew you'd turn it into one of your lectures about integrity breaches." "So you decided to deceive me instead," he stated. "It wasn't an accusation, it was a conclusion. You made a conscious choice to hide something from me because you didn't want to deal with my reaction. Do you understand what that means?" It means the foundation of us, our honesty with each other, the one thing I thought was absolute was conditional. It was only there when it was convenient for you. He shook his head slowly, a look of genuine heartbreak on his face. "The hand-holding is just a symptom, Celeste. The lie is the disease. It tells me that you don't trust me, and if you don't trust me and I can no longer trust you, then what are we even doing?" He said it all so calmly, so rationally, like he was explaining a structural failure in a bridge. And I realized then, with a surge of cold dread, that I had no argument. I had taken the one principle he held sacred and shattered it just for a cheap thrill. He started packing that night. There was no negotiation, no dramatic ultimatum. It was as if his internal calculus had been run, the conclusion reached, and the only remaining step was execution. I followed him into the bedroom, my panic finally boiling over into a desperate, messy rage. "That's it, you're just leaving," I shouted, watching him pull a suitcase from the top of the closet. "3 years, Nathaniel, you're throwing away 3 years over a 10-second misunderstanding." He didn't look at me. He just methodically opened drawers, taking out socks and t-shirts, folding them into neat squares. "This isn't about 10 seconds, Celeste. It's about the lie. The lie proves that everything I thought we were building was built on sand." "You're unbelievable," I was crying now, hot, angry tears. "You're so rigid, so black and white. You have no idea what it's like to live with that kind of pressure, to be so scared of making one tiny misstep that you feel like you can't breathe. I told you about my past, about what happened with my ex. I have issues, I have insecurities. A good partner would try to understand that, not just execute me for it." I was throwing my trauma at him like a weapon, hoping it would make him feel guilty, hoping it would make him stop. But he just paused, his back still to me, and said quietly, "I did understand, Celeste. For 3 years, I've tried to be the safest place in the world for you. All I ever asked for in return was the truth. Your past doesn't give you a free pass to lie to me." He zipped up the suitcase and walked out of the room. I followed him, pleading, yelling, my arguments becoming more and more frantic. I accused him of being cold, of being unfeeling, of secretly wanting a way out. I tried to make it his fault, nothing worked. It was like shouting at a brick wall. He moved through the apartment with a chilling efficiency, gathering his toiletries, his laptop, his favorite coffee mug. When he was at the door, I made one last, desperate attempt. "Where will you go?" "I'll stay at a hotel for a few days, then figure it out," he said, his hand on the doorknob. He finally looked at me and his eyes were empty. The love, the warmth I had taken for granted for so long was just gone. "I'll arrange a time to get the rest of my things." "Goodbye, Celeste." And then he was gone. The door clicked shut and the silence he left behind was absolute. I slid down the door and just sobbed, my throat raw. For the next 2 hours, I bombarded his phone with a chaotic stream of texts. They started as apologies, then morphed into angry accusations, then circled back to pathetic begging. Each one was delivered, but none were read. A single gray checkmark on WhatsApp. He hadn't even blocked me yet. He had just muted me from his life. A week went by in a haze of stale takeout, unwashed hair, and the hollow echo of my own footsteps in the too big apartment. I cycled through a toxic rotation of emotions. White-hot anger at his inflexibility, then waves of self-pity, followed by a crushing, suffocating guilt. I spent hours composing long, rambling emails to him that I never sent, trying to explain the tangled mess of my own psychology, the self-sabotaging impulse I couldn't control. I was desperate for a sign, a crack in his resolve. That Saturday, I was lying on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through my phone when I noticed our shared tablet on the coffee table. We barely used it, but it was logged into all our joint accounts. On a whim, I picked it up, my heart pounding with a sick, desperate hope. Maybe he'd left a browser tab open, a clue, anything. The screen lit up and there it was. He hadn't closed his browser, there were a few tabs open. A news site, YouTube, and one that made my breath catch in my throat. The tab's title was simple, Custom Design Ashford Jewelers. My hand was shaking as I tapped on it. The page loaded, revealing a 3D modeling interface for a custom engagement ring. It was a design in progress, but it was unmistakably for me. A simple, elegant platinum band, with a setting designed to hold a pear-shaped sapphire, my favorite stone, a detail I'd mentioned offhandedly years ago. He had remembered. Flanking the sapphire were two tiny, intricately carved leaves, a nod to our first date, which was a hike in a state park famous for its autumn foliage. It was the most thoughtful, beautiful thing I had ever seen, and next to it, minimized at the bottom of the screen, was an open document, a simple text file. The title was Proposal Plan Greece. I clicked on it. It was a meticulously planned itinerary for a 2-week trip to the Greek islands next spring. He had researched ferry schedules, booked refundable hotels in Santorini and Crete, and even made a list of restaurants I'd like based on food blogs I followed. The last entry in the document, dated just 2 weeks ago, read, Day 10, sunset at Oya, find the spot near the Blue Dome churches. Make sure the ring box doesn't bulge in my pocket. Just tell her how much my life began when I met her. Don't forget to breathe. The tablet slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the floor. A strangled sob escaped my lips, a raw animal sound of pure agony. All the anger, all the self-serving justifications and righteous indignation I had been clinging to for a week, they all just dissolved into dust. They were lies I told myself to avoid facing the truth. I hadn't just told a small lie about a stupid, fleeting moment. I had taken a future, this beautiful, thoughtful, carefully constructed future he was building for us, and I had set it on fire for a 10-second ego boost from a stranger. I wasn't the victim of his rigidity. I was the architect of my own desolation. I'm on the phone with my best friend, Jessica, now. I'm swirling the last of the wine in my glass, making my voice sound breezy, almost cheerful. Honestly, Jess, it's for the best, I say, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. If he can't handle one tiny, insignificant little thing, then he was never the right guy for me anyway. His loss, right? Plenty of other fish in the sea. Are you sure you're okay, Celeste? She asks, her voice laced with a concern I don't deserve. Totally fine. I'm already downloading the dating apps. I lie again, forcing a laugh that sounds brittle and hollow even to my own ears. Onwards and upwards. The next one will be better. We hang up, and the suffocating silence of the apartment rushes back in to claim me. I stare at my reflection in the dark screen of the television, a pale, puffy-eyed ghost. My bravado evaporates, leaving behind only the cold, hard truth. I put the wine glass down and pick up my phone. My fingers hover over my contacts, then with a familiar, sickening lurch of compulsion, I open my messaging app and tap on Brent's name. The chat history is short, a few work-related messages, and then his invitation to dinner. I type out a single word, hey. The cursor blinks, mocking me. I stare at the word for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the send button. What am I even doing? Seeking another hit of validation? Trying to prove to myself that I'm still wanted? I see the ring on the tablet screen in my mind's eye. I see the words, don't forget to breathe. With a shaking hand, I delete the word, one letter at a time. Then I close the app, turn off my phone, and let it fall onto the cushion beside me. The screen stays black, offering no distraction, just a faint, distorted reflection of my own face, streaked with tears I didn't even realize I was crying.